Hello everyone, Reza here. In this video, we will learn about the new Advanced Approvals capability in Power Platform. Advanced Approvals allows us to create multi-staged approvals. At each stage, we can request approvals from different stakeholders. Plus, we have the option to include conditional approvals, approve, reject, move to another stage, or skip a stage. Let's check this new powerful capability in action. A brand new feature in Power Platform called Advanced Approvals is a capability that allows us to build more complex approval processes. These are built upon the basic approvals that we are so familiar with within Power Automate Cloud Flows. Advanced approvals offer key functionalities that set them apart from the standard approval action in Power Automate. One, we can create multi-stage approvals. Second, conditional approvals. Plus, reminders, delegation, custom fields, and notification preferences. So how do we access advanced approvals? If we head over to Power Automate and create a flow, here, if we search for approvals, we have the standard approvals connector that comes with the following actions. These are the basic approval actions. Where are the advanced approvals? Let's try and search for advanced approvals. They don't show up here. Reason? Advanced approvals is a capability exclusive to agent flows. Now, what are agent flows? Agent flows are automations of flows that are built in Copilot Studio and can be used standalone or with Copilot Studio agents. To use advanced approvals, we have to build an agent flow. Here, I am signed in to Microsoft Copilot Studio. In the left navigation menu, we have agent flows. Here, if I create a new agent flow, I'll pick a trigger. And if I go to add an action, here if I search for approvals, we do have the standard approvals, but we also have advanced approvals. This is the powerful new capability that allows us to create advanced multi-staged conditional approvals. The key aspect around agent flows is any flow that you build here in Copilot Studio automatically gets assigned the Copilot Studio license. All the actions in the flow, when executed, will consume message credits from Copilot Studio. That's the licensing angle. So let's take a scenario and see how we can leverage advanced approvals. A travel request approval process. When a user will submit a new travel request, the first step is it needs to go to the user's manager for approval. Once the manager approves, then there is a condition. Is the total cost of the travel request, is it greater than 1,000? If yes, then it should go for department head approval. If no, the process will end. And if more than 2,000, then we also need the finance admin approval. Multi-staged conditional approvals. If you try and build this out in Power Automate using the standard approvals feature, it would require a lot of actions. It's a lot of work to frame something like this in the standard approval feature set. But advanced approvals makes it a lot easier. Let's try and build this scenario out from scratch. In my HR SharePoint site, I will go ahead and create a list for users to create travel requests. Here, I'll use an out-of-the-box template called travel request. I'll use this template. I'll give my list a name, create. The list gets created. If I click on add new, this is the form that includes all the columns in the list. You will note that there is a simple yes/no Boolean column called approved. We are building an advanced approval process. Let's change this. First up, let's go ahead and delete this approved column. And let's go ahead and add two new columns. One of type choice called approval status. I'll give four options here: new, approved, pending, and rejected. By default, when a user submits a travel request, I'll set this value to new. This column we will use to set the status of the approval depending upon the result of our multi-staged approval process. And the second column we will add of type multi-lines of text. I'll call this approval details. More options. I'll set enhanced rich text as on. Save. Here we will log the details of the approval process. Now, if a user tries and creates a new item in this list, they will see the approval status and approval detail columns. So let's go ahead, edit the columns on the form and remove those two columns out. So this is what the user will see when they will enter the details. Now let's go and create a new agent flow. The trigger for this flow will be when a new item is created in SharePoint. I'll put my SharePoint site URL, pick my SharePoint list. So the flow triggers when a new travel request is submitted. I've renamed my trigger action. The next step, I would like to update the status of the item in SharePoint. Here I will connect to my SharePoint site and travel request list. The ID for the item to update will come from dynamic content property ID from my trigger. Approval status value. This I will set to pending because right after this, I plan to begin the approval process. That approval process I will build using advanced approvals. I'll select the action and now I can start framing my approval process. Let's set up the approval. Here we can add stages. The first stage as part of our approval process will be manager approval. The approval type, I have two options: approve, reject, everyone must approve, or approve, reject, first to respond. For each stage, I can have one or more approvers. If I pick everyone must approve, then every approver that has been configured for this stage will have to say approved. Even if one rejects it, the outcome is rejected. The second option, which is first to respond, the first approver to respond, their decision will be considered final. For my manager approval, this task is going to a single user, so I'll pick first to respond. Approval title. Here, I will say manager approval needed, travel request for. Here I would like to put the name of the employee who is making the travel request. Now here, there is no dynamic content available. But on the right hand side, we have an option here called inputs. These are input properties that we can pass from the flow to the advanced approval action. We can pass dynamic data from our flow. I'll add an input. There are 3 types supported. I'll pick string. So I'll create an input of type string called employee name. Now, how do I use this value in the title of the approval? The format here is dollar curly braces. Right in between, you put the name of the input property. Done. Right after this, I would also like to put the destination information that the user provides as part of the approval process. So once again, I'll create a string input, destination, and this I will plug it right here. Assigned to. Who do you want to assign this approval task to? In this case, it would be the user's manager. And I need to provide that information here dynamically. Now, by default, the selector here is a people picker experience where I can pick users from Microsoft Entra. But I want to set this dynamically. So first thing I'll do is go to settings and use dynamic content. And here I can put the email addresses of the users to whom I want to assign this task to. In my case, it would be the requester's manager, which I would like to pass dynamically. So I'll create another input of type string, call it manager email, and this I will set right here. Details, I'll provide all this information as another input parameter of type string. That's approval details. These are all case sensitive. Item link description. I'll use employee name, comma, destination. Enable notifications. Yes. So this will send out the notification to the approver. They'll get this in the form of an email notification. They can respond to this from Microsoft Teams. So that sets up my first stage, which is manager approval. Step 1 done. Now I need a condition to check the total cost of the travel request. For that, I'll add a condition. The condition, here I can pick all my input properties. Let's create one more input property, this time of type number. I'll call it total cost. The condition will be total cost. Is it greater than or equal to 1000? If yes, then I would like the process to continue. If no, meaning the cost is less than 1000, in that case, I would like to end this approval process and I'll end it as approved. First step is the manager approval. If the manager approves, only then the process will move ahead. If it is more than 1000, I need the department head approval. And for that, I'll go and add another stage. This should go to the department head. I have a designated user for this. Department head approval needed. Travel request for. I can plug in the same dynamic input properties. Assign to. James is the department head. So I'll select James from Microsoft Entra. I've gone ahead and set up the remaining details for this approval action. This stage I will call department head approval. Next, I need to check to see if the cost is greater than 2000 in order to set another approval called finance admin approval. So I'll add a condition. If the total cost is greater than or equal to 2000, then you continue to the next stage that I will be creating shortly, else you end the approval as approved. So you can see how easily I can frame my stages, which are my approval actions, and I can frame my conditions. These conditions, I can have multiple conditions. I can define whether these conditions should run in an AND or an OR operator. I can also group conditions. You can decide what should be the next step. Should it continue? Meaning, should it go to the next action? Do you want to jump to a different stage? Or do you want to simply end the process? You have full flexibility to define your complex approval process. In my case, I have one more stage to add, so I'll go and add that. This one, finance admin approval. I have multiple finance admins. Rasika is one, Reza is another. I've gone ahead and framed the other properties. That completes my multi-staged travel request approval process. I'll click save. That goes and saves that complex approval process, which I can go back and modify if desired. And this action is configured to have input properties. Now I need to submit the details for all those input properties. And this I can set using dynamic content or expressions. Employee name. This would be the created by user's display name, the person who created the travel request. Destination. There is a location column called destination. I'll pick the name of the destination. Manager email. I need to grab the requester's manager from Active Directory. We do have an action called get manager from the Office 365 users connector. Let's go ahead and use that. The user principal name or ID. Here I'll put the email address of the user who created the travel request. I'll go back to the advanced approval action. Manager email will come from dynamic content mail from the get manager action. Approval details. Here I'll pass the name of the employee who created the travel request. Next up, I'll give the purpose of travel. There is a column called reason for travel. So I'll select this, dynamic content, travel dates. We can also format information. And for that, I'll use an expression. So first up, I'll go to dynamic content and pick the travel start date. This I want to format. Let's have Copilot create the expression for us. So create an expression with Copilot. Format the date as month, date, and year. Create the expression. Done. That's the suggested expression. I'll say OK. Add. That will add the date. And finally, estimated cost of the travel. In this SharePoint list, there are two columns. One is estimated airfare. This is of type number. Let's default this to 0. The second one is estimated hotel cost. This one is also a number. I'll default it to 0 and save. The total cost will be the sum of these two column values. And for that, we'll use expressions. We can ask Copilot to frame it, or if you're familiar with the expression syntax, we have a simple expression function called add. Here I can add numbers. The first one will be the estimated airfare, put a comma. The second property will be the estimated hotel cost. Add, that adds this expression right here. And I will repeat the same expression in the input property that we have here called total cost. The item link, that's the link to the item in SharePoint. That also is a dynamic content property exposed that we can select. Done. I have gone ahead and configured my advanced approval. Now I've built a lot of things. Best practice, at least save your flow once. In this case, I'll simply go and publish this flow, which will also in turn save it. This flow is an agent flow. I have built this in Copilot Studio in a specific Power Platform environment. If I head over to Overview, here I can see that the license plan associated with this is Copilot Studio. Can even edit the details of the flow. Let me give this flow a name. I'll call it my travel request approval workflow. Save. Now this flow is published, it's turned on, it's ready to go. If I go to flows in Copilot Studio, this is agent flows. If I go to Power Automate and look at that same environment and go to My Flows, that agent flow is available here as well. And I can modify it directly in Power Automate as well. You can see that advanced approval action right here. This advanced approval process will run. Once it runs, we need to check the outcome of the approval. So I'll add a condition to do that. Condition that checks to see the dynamic property outcome of this advanced approval action. Does this not contain the word case sensitive reject? It's a multi-staged approval. At the end, the final result that we get an outcome will include the response of each approver. All of them have to say approve. That means the outcome should not contain the text reject. And if that's the case, that means this condition basically saying travel request is approved, yes or no. It is approved. In that case, I would like to go and update the item. I already have an action here to update the item. Why not copy that and simply go ahead and paste it right here. Here, I'll update the item status to approved. Here is that approval status column changed to approved. And this action I'll copy, paste it in the false branch, which is update the item status to rejected. So the status will change depending upon the response of that advanced approval action. One small thing is left, the approval details. I want to capture all that information. Let's create an HTML table right after the advanced approval action. Here, I would like to get the array of responses. Now, dynamic content is not listing it. No problem. We can go to expression and go to dynamic content. Start and wait for an advanced approval. Here we have body. So let's pick this. That's the response body of that action. From here, there is a property called responses that has an array of data that includes every response of every approver from all those stages that you've configured. So I'll pick that array and click add. Advanced parameters, I'll click show all. Columns, I'll say custom. I'll create one column here called approval name. This one, I'll plug in the expression item of responder display name. This will grab the name of the approver. Then response. What was their response? Expression item of approver response. Next, comments. Expression item of comments. And finally, response date. Expression item of response date add. This HTML table will have the approval details that I can set when I am updating the item. Let's go to show all and also set the approval details, which was a rich text multi-line text column. I'll set this dynamic content output of my HTML table action. I'll do the same thing for the rejected status. Done. Publish. My travel request approval workflow is published, ready to go. Note, it's an agent flow. So whenever the flow runs, it will consume the capacity based on the number of actions used from Copilot Studio. Those are the message packs. So let's go ahead and create a new travel request to see the advanced approval workflow in action. I'll put in my trip title, the reason for the travel. Here I'll pick my destination, travel start date, travel end date, airline, estimated airfare, hotel, hotel cost. Notice my total cost is $2,100. Let's go ahead and submit this. The status is new by default. Now, once the approval process kicks in, this approval status will change to pending. We can track our agent flow activity. The flow has triggered. The flow is running. The status of the item in SharePoint has now been updated to pending. The multi-staged approval process has started. First step is manager approval. My manager in Entra is Sarah. Signed in as Sarah in Power Automate Approvals. Here is the approval task, manager approval needed, assigned to Sarah. This includes the details of the approval. The estimated cost, total cost is $2,100. Also includes a link. Reza submitted the request for travel to the Microsoft Redmond campus. Sarah selects that. She can see all the details of the travel request. And Sarah can provide her approval response right here. Sarah approves this, provides her comments, submits her response. That is stage 1 of the approval process. Now, after the first stage, we have a condition that checks to see if the total cost is greater than 1,000. In this case, it is. So it will trigger the second stage of the approval process, which is the department head approval. That department head is James. Here is the travel request that James receives as the department head for approval. All the details are the same. James can now approve or reject. James says approved, enters his comments, submits his response. The process moves ahead. Is the cost greater than 2,000? The answer is yes in this case. So now the process will go to finance admin for approval. In this case, Reza is playing the role of the finance admin as well. I have limited accounts in this tenant to test this. So I'm going to go ahead and approve this, plug in my comments, confirm. Now that all the approval stages are done, you can see the start and wait for an approval action completes. This creates an HTML table that includes all the details of the approval responses. It's going to check the outcome. No approver said reject. So now it will update the status of the item in SharePoint to approved. And here are the approval details. That's your HTML table. These were the approvers involved in the process. These were their responses. These were their comments. This is the date at which they responded at. Here I'm submitting another request. This one, the total cost is $1,200. So what's going to happen? It'll go to the manager for approval and department head. That's it. Finance admin won't get the approval process. Manager Sarah receives the approval request. Let's say Sarah rejects it. It stopped at the first stage itself. The process won't move ahead now because the outcome is going to be rejected. It only went up to Sarah. At the time of recording of this video, advanced approvals are a preview capability. So how did I get access to this awesome feature? The environment in which I'm creating this agent flow, the environment is an early release environment. How do I create an early release environment? In the admin center, manage, then environments. Here, when you create a new environment, make sure you have get new features early turned on. If you enjoyed this video, then do like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And thank you so much for watching.